I quit. I'm tired of this bullshit and I quit. My students are fucking assholes and they don't listen to me and they're rude. My admin is unsupportive and they don't know what the fuck they're doing. I'm tired of this job and I don't get paid shit. I quit. So this is the sentiment that is resounding across America as we approach the middle of the year. Are you in the same boat? Are you wondering if you should quit? Are you sitting there planning and daydreaming and wondering what it would be like if you did quit teaching? Have you planned out and researched what the repercussions would be or weighed the pros and cons of quitting? Are you sitting there just desperate to figure out a solution because you do love teaching, but at the same time, you kind of hate teaching? Or maybe you're just ready to quit, but you don't quite have a plan. In this video, I'm going to discuss the pros and cons of quitting mid-year so that if you do decide to do it, you can do so confidently and knowing that you covered all of your bases. So it's not uncommon for teachers to want to quit in the middle of the year, especially if you're burnt out or you're really dissatisfied with the job. Maybe you went in thinking it was going to be one way and you were kind of disillusioned about it and you're like, you know what, this is not what I signed up for. So I know that you're not taking this decision lightly, and I'm going to go over 8 pros and cons to consider in terms of whether or not you should quit teaching. So let's talk about the pros of quitting teaching. Now, one caveat here though, I have no intention of quitting my teaching job. I'm one of the few teachers left that still loves their job after teaching for 21 years. But there are definitely some pros in terms of leaving the profession. So the first pro is that you're gonna have more time for just other pursuits, just your personal interests and hobbies. We all know that teaching takes up a lot of time. I mean, we're talking about planning and decorating your room and grading, responding to parents, responding to admin, just emails in general, the mountains of paperwork, the stress, all of it. Just all of these things, they add up. To people on the outside, it doesn't seem like a big deal until you're actually in it and you're constantly being attacked. So now, without teaching, you actually have the freedom to use that time to do what actually lights you up and makes you happy. Another pro is a more flexible work schedule. I think we all know that teachers don't work a normal 9 to 5. We don't necessarily clock out and that's it, although a lot of us do, but especially in the beginning when you're just starting out with teaching, you definitely don't work just your normal 8-hour workday. A lot of times you're spending the weekends and over your breaks and in the evenings, and it just bleeds into your personal time, kind of like similar to pro number 1. So now you're gonna have a more flexible schedule where you can spend the weekends with your friends or with your family, or even by yourself doing what you want to do. You can also get a job that actually has opportunities for career advancement. Yes, if you're a teacher, you can move on to things like some kind of a learning specialist, a district specialist. You can move on to be an administrator of some sort, maybe working at the district office, superintendent, something like that. But for the most part, upward mobility in education is a little bit non-existent unless you take on more work. So if you were to leave the profession and go to another job, a lot of times in the private sector, there are opportunities to move up the ladder, so to speak. And if you are an entrepreneur, then it's up to you how far up the ladder you want to go, how much money you want to make. But if you're a teacher, there's a finite number of resources there. You're only going to get paid so much unless you decide to get your master's degree or your PhD or something like that. And that costs more money in order to make money. Another pro of leaving the teaching profession is that you can use all the skills that you learned while teaching and you can apply it to other jobs. There's actually a lot of companies that are looking for teachers because we actually can use our skills and apply them to a lot of different professions, and especially ones that pay more. That's another pro, is that not only are you moving up the ladder, but you're also using your skills towards something else. Leaving your job could also open up opportunities to relocate. Maybe you don't want to necessarily leave teaching, you just don't want to teach where you're at. Maybe there's another school where you know the teachers are satisfied, or maybe you just want to up and completely move to a different state. Or if you decide to pursue a different career path, that could also take you to some wonderful places where you've always wanted to live. Leaving the profession could actually be really good for your mental health. If you have admin that don't support you, or some kind of a toxic environment, or maybe you're crying in your car every day, you're crying yourself to sleep, you're exhausted when you go home and you don't have motivation to do anything else. All of this takes a toll on your mental health, which eventually takes a toll on your physical health. It could be that leaving the teaching profession is actually the best thing for you, and you find that eventually improve your overall well-being. Leaving mid-year before a break or at a semester, something like that. It's not ideal, but it's kind of like a natural time to go. It makes it easier to transition to something else because it feels like you kind of tidied up at least one grading period, or at least you tidied up the first half of the year and did your part before you go. That's one advantage of leaving this time as opposed to in the middle of the semester. Also, leaving mid-year means that you've had time to reflect on what you do and don't like about a job. And this can really help you with whatever your future career is, because now you can have a clearer idea of what it is that you want to do, or what it is that you don't want to do, the types of things that you don't enjoy doing. You don't want to keep doing things that suck the life out of you. So now you can be excited about doing things that you find purposeful and give you energy. So I created a checklist with all of these pros and cons so that you can look at it and weigh them and decide what is the best decision for you. So be sure to click the link in the description box below and grab that checklist. Yes, there are some pros to leaving the teaching profession mid-year, but there's definitely some things that you need to consider before you do that. There is definitely some cons and consequences if you decide to leave right now. So one of the consequences of leaving mid-year is that it's probably going to be really hard for your administrator to replace you. Now, if you don't like your administrator or you hate your school, you probably don't care. But just hear me out on this. So at my school, we had someone who kept going on a leave of absence. And sometimes they would go in the middle of the year or at the beginning of the year, but with short notice. And the problem with that is that it's really hard to find someone to fill that position. So these poor kids, at one point, they had 6 different substitutes before they got one 2 months into the semester. Now, that's really tough for students. They need stability just like we do. And so it could be really difficult, and you might feel a little bit guilty about that because you're like, I left everyone in a lurch. Also, if you break your contract, there could be some repercussions. It really depends on your state and on your district. So in some states, they will revoke your teaching license if you break your contract, meaning you won't be able to get a teaching job at another district in your state. Or maybe your district won't release you until you've fulfilled your contract, or they won't let you go until they have found your replacement. That actually happened to that person at our school who wanted to leave because they'd found a job at a different school. But my district wouldn't release them until they found the replacement, and they couldn't find a replacement until the following year. Also, I found that some states will give fines to teachers who decide to break their contract because it's just so disruptive and really difficult on the schools and the kids if you decide to break your contract. Again, if you don't plan on teaching in your state, then that's not an issue. Leaving in this way mid-year, it just kind of makes it so that you don't have a sense of closure. You might start to feel guilty about leaving everyone in the middle of the year with the students wondering why you abandoned them. Another con of leaving mid-year is that you may find that you can't find a job. You might have thought that, oh yeah, it'll be really easy for me to get another job because right now everyone's hiring. But at the same time, you're still out of money if you didn't have a plan B lined up, or if you didn't have a job lined up right away, or you didn't have enough savings to hold you over until you do get a job. So that loss of income can actually be really scary. Another con of leaving mid-year is that you will definitely lose your benefits. Most districts offer some kind of benefits, and now you're going to be out. So let's say that you're supporting your family, or if you have health conditions that depend on your insurance, leaving mid-year is not going to really be a good idea until you have something lined up. You are also going to lose some job security. If you know that a lot of teachers are leaving right now, then you also know that a lot of jobs are open across the country. It's not that hard to find another teaching job. So job security is actually something kind of a big deal. You might go somewhere that's in the private sector, and if a big recession hits, then you are going to be susceptible to that. Whereas pretty much in the teaching sector, it doesn't matter what's happening in the economy, they always have a need for teachers in the same way that they always have a need for doctors. Also, a lot of times when teachers leave the profession, they lose those connections that they made while they were teaching in terms of colleagues. So the people who are still there teaching, especially your colleagues who were kind of left with the mess that you left them, they're probably not going to want to hang out with you. They might understand why you needed to leave, but now you added more work onto their plate. And so if you had some close friendships with the people that you worked with, there's a good chance that you're not going to be so close with them anymore. And that can be really hard because a lot of times when we're adults, we make friends with the people we work with. Another con of leaving mid-year or just leaving the teaching profession in general is you might lose a sense of personal fulfillment. Yes, teaching is hard, but it's also really, really fulfilling. Once you get past the initial hurdles, once you find a school that you really fit into and you have supportive admin and you're really happy where you're at, teaching is the most fulfilling job. I wouldn't have stayed for 21 years if it wasn't. That's just something that will kind of leave a hole in you because at certain moments, did get some personal fulfillment. Now leaving your job, whether it's at the end of the school year, but especially mid-year, it's always going to be difficult. So you just want to make sure that you do it in a professional way. You don't want to storm out or just running out, giving everyone the middle finger or swearing at everyone. You don't want to burn any bridges because at the end of the day, you might need some recommendations. You might have a sympathetic colleague who understands why you need to leave, and if you leave in the right way, you still could use them as a reference. Or maybe your principal understands why you have to leave and they're willing to work with you if you're willing to give them some notice, give them some time to find your replacement, and they can also be a good reference for you. So you want to make sure that no matter what kind of a job you're leaving, that you're doing it in a professional way that doesn't leave a bad taste in anyone's mouth, even if you hate it. I mean, you never know. You may want to come back to the district at some point in the future after you find out that working in the private sector could be worse than working in a school. Maybe you miss all of those breaks that we get. I mean, no, they're not paid vacations, but it's nice to look forward to extended breaks. Whereas if you work in the private sector, you have to ask for permission to take time off and you only get 2 weeks out of the year. Now, if you can, try to wait it out until the end of the year. It's just really hard on everyone if you quit in the middle of the year. Now again, if your situation is truly toxic, your mental health is just gone to crap, then yeah, I mean, I understand you got to do what you got to do. But if you can hold on, if you can find a way to hold on until the end of the year, it's really the ideal situation, especially if you need references or if they're going to want to talk to your previous employer. Now, in the past, I have entertained the idea of leaving the profession to the point where I redid my resume. I even applied to other jobs and went on job interviews. But then it dawned on me, I'm gonna have to work for someone else. I'm gonna have to meet their deadlines. I'm gonna have to listen to a boss. And you might say, but Kim, I do that right now. Not really. When you're in your classroom, for the most part, you get to call the shots. Maybe you do have an admin that's breathing down your neck because they want certain results from you, but you still get to lead the class, teach the students, and what happens in that classroom is solely up to you. It's solely on you. So you have a lot more control than you would in the private sector. I know teaching is hard. I know that it adds up after a while and it just really becomes this huge weight on your shoulders. But there are ways to get past it. There are ways to get through these hard times right now so that you can actually thrive and not just survive in teaching. If this is something that you struggle with, be sure to reach out to me in the comments, or you can also email me at kim@teachersneedteachers.com. I'll try to help you as best as I can. So which pro and which con resonated the most with you? Let me know in the comments below because I'd love to start this conversation to see whether or not you should leave or maybe you should stick it out at least until the end of the year. Now, if you stick around with teaching, be sure to subscribe to my channel. So the whole point of me creating all of this content is to help you thrive as a new teacher, not just survive. So I'm going to break down how to make teaching actually easier, how to make delivering a lesson easier, or planning a lesson, or dealing with parents. Things like that so many of you get frustrated with. Even how to deal with toxic admin. So maybe what's actually making teaching difficult and unbearable for you is that you just haven't had the support and the training that you need. So if lesson planning has been giving you a lot of anxiety this year, be sure to watch this video next to help demystify the process.